Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking, and as always, before this video starts, I want to express my gratitude toward those who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal, or Super Thanks. I appreciate your generosity, so thank you friends and have a blessed day. Today's video I will start with the Zaporozhian frontline, and to be more specific, Orikhiv sector. In the last 24 hours, Ukrainian attacks here on this sector had significantly intensified. Ukrainian forces were assaulting Russian positions along this road, occasionally entering the settlement and initiating fighting for it, as well as attacking to the flank and rear of the settlement in an attempt to achieve a breakthrough and cut off Russian supplies and forces within Robotyne settlement. There were also reported assaults in the direction of settlement of Verbove and in between Robotyne and Verbove. As a result of these attacks, Ukrainians were able to significantly advance within the gray zone and penetrate Russian defensive lines in this sector. Russian artillery here works without rest, and Ukrainians are not advancing without problems. As they roll out their armor from the forest lines that they use to conceal them, they are almost immediately being spotted by the Russian artillery and fired upon. For example, here on this video, you can see Ukrainian tank burning, and as you can see, it barely made out of the forest line. Generally, this is the situation here in this sector. Despite the fact that Ukrainian forces were successful here on this front in the last 24 hours, they've taken extensive amounts of damage in the process, be it attacking Robotyne, Verbove, or once again attempt to flank the settlement of Robotyne and initiate fighting for Novopokrovka. Ukrainian attacks in the direction of Verbove have not seen any success. They were unable to advance in the direction of the first line of defense in this sector. However, because of this recent success, they are now dangerously close to this portion of the line, and by the look of it, will continue to smash against this flank of Robotyne and Novopokrovka, but as of right now, they are still stuck in Robotyne. Situation in Robotyne is especially interesting. Despite all hopes of the Ukrainian side, Ukrainians were unable to swiftly capture this settlement. Wave after wave, they assaulted Russian positions within this settlement for a very long time, entering the settlement at least 3 times. However, all of these attacks were met with fierce Russian resistance and counterattacks. As I speak, fighting within the Robotyne settlement is still ongoing, and it's hard to say who has the upper hand. Artillery duels and counter-battery activities are happening on the entire front, with both sides trying to destroy or at least disrupt logistics of the enemy. While we here, let's discuss the situation around Piatihatky Lapkova settlement. In the last 24 hours, Ukrainians were active on this front. Yet again, they attempted at advancing in the direction of Zherebets. However, due to the terrain and general location of Piatihatky, Ukrainians were easily spotted by the Russians, and the attack failed, after which Ukrainians were forced to retreat. Then from here, let's move to the Kherson sector and discuss the situation around the Ukrainian landings on this front. As you can see, there is no gray zone here anymore, despite the fact that Ukrainians had did everything in their power to successfully land here. At some point, they were able to establish a small bridgehead with some of their elite forces. However, immense Russian artillery strikes and counterattacks in this small bridgehead forced Ukrainians, or what's left of them, to retreat back to the islands behind them. And at the time of recording, there are no Ukrainian presence on the Kherson mainland. Then from here, let's move to the Vremivka tactical bridgehead, which is located here, and discuss the situation on this sector. Now, it is being confirmed by most sources that Ukrainians had ended their cleaning operation within Urozhaine. Russians have left this settlement yesterday. However, Ukrainians were slowly advancing within it due to Russian artillery and counterattacks. At this point in time, Ukrainians are attempting at advancing and attacking in the direction of Zavetna Bazhanya. However, these attacks are unsuccessful at this point in time due to the fact that they are forced to cross the river under constant artillery fire and Russian crossfire as well. As you can see, Ukrainians here are now in a pocket. What doesn't help Ukrainian advance here is not only the fact that Russians have superiority in artillery, but also in aviation. Here on this video you can see Russian aviation bombing settlement of Urozhaine with FAB-500 bomb. This disrupts Ukrainian supply and usually stops Ukrainian advancements before they even begin. And due to those factors, at this point in time, Ukrainian attacks in this sector are highly inefficient. Staromayorsky and Urozhaine were not the only sector where Ukrainians were active and attacking. There were reported Ukrainian attacks in the direction of Novodonetsky and in between Novodonetsky and Urozhaine in attempt to close off this salience and even out the front line, as well as in the direction of Piatihatky from Livadne, Novodarivka and Rivnopol. These attacks, I'm sure, will also in attempt to close off this bridgehead. Some relative Ukrainian success was reported here, with them capturing some Russian trenches. The intensity of fighting here in this sector increases, and Russian forces within these salients are now under immense stress. At this point in time they are holding, but if Ukrainians will be able to enter and capture Piatihatky, Russians will be forced to retreat and leave this salient and retreat behind better defensive positions. Same could be said about the right flank. If Ukrainians will be able to enter and capture Novodonetsky, they will be able to advance in the direction of Kreminchik, thus endangering all Russian forces on this front. If Novodonetsky is to be captured, Russians too would be forced to retreat. This is the reason why, despite all Ukrainian attempts, Russians are doing everything in their power to defend these important strongholds. Then from here let's visit settlement of Bakhmut, where Ukrainians were also on the attack. In the last 24 hours they assaulted Russian positions within Kurdyumovka, Zelenopilye, Andriivka and Klishevka. Ukrainians here are attacking day and night with artillery support in attempt to push Russians out of the settlement with brute force. However, judging by the recent Russian counterattack near Klishevka and general inability of Ukrainians to advance further on, especially if we add constant Russian counterattacks here in this sector, we can safely say that the situation on the southern flank of Bakhmut is hard but stable. Ukrainians, as tradition implies, continued their assaults in the direction of Berkhivka and Yagodne, as well as Dubovo-Vasilivka and along this Russian bridgehead. From here let's quickly touch situation around Kreminna Liman front. Here situation remains to be exactly the same as yesterday. Russians and Ukrainians here are tangled in heavy fighting within Serebryansky forest. Ukrainians are trying to advance in the direction of Dibrovo and capture it, however were unsuccessful. Russians had some limited attacks in the direction of Torsky and Zarychne, however these attacks were met with Ukrainian counterattacks and the result was limited. Then from here let's visit the Russian bridgehead across Zherebets river. As a result of positional warfare, Russians were able to recover some of the territories that they had previously lost to the Ukrainian counterattack in between Karamazinikivka and Kavalirivka. Here you can see that on this picture. Generally, the positional fighting is happening all across this front line, with Russians and Ukrainians battling out for the control of several settlements. Here, Ukrainians are trying to force Russians to retreat from Nadia, while Russians are attempting at attacking in the direction of Novogorivka and Tverdokhlebova. If you remember, at some point in time, they had control over it, but as a result of Ukrainian counterattack were forced to retreat. So this is the general situation here. Both Russians and Ukrainians have operational goals here and are working towards them. So this is it for today's video. I hope it was to your liking. If it was, please consider supporting it with a like, comment, and if you haven't subscribed, a subscription. For you it's just a few clicks, but for me it means the world. These actions help promote this video to a wider audience, thus spread the message. If you feel extra generous, please consider supporting me financially on Patreon. This will allow me to improve my general financial situation. I thank you in advance. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.